I had everything money could buy. A penthouse with a view that made strangers stop and stare. A garage full of cars I barely remembered driving. Women who called me handsome, brilliant, generous. Women who never once asked how I was really doing. I was 29 years old, and I was the loneliest man in the city. Every woman who came into my life saw the same thing, the watch on my wrist, the car keys on the table, the last name that opened every door. Nobody ever looked past that. Not once. So one night, sitting alone in a house, too big for one heartbeat, I asked myself a question that changed everything. What if nobody knew who I was? What if I stripped away the money, the name, the power, and just became nobody? I decided to disappear. I would trade my suits for rags, my car for a wheelchair I didn't need. I would become the one thing no one in my world had ever seen me as: poor, broken, and invisible. My parents begged me not to go. They said it was reckless, dangerous. They said a man like me had no business pretending to be a beggar on some forgotten road. But I needed to know the truth. I needed to know if anyone, just one person, could love the man underneath the money. I had no idea that a poor farmer's daughter, in a village nobody had ever heard of, was about to teach me what love actually looked like. And I had no idea how much it would cost the people who showed it to me. This is the story of the day I became a stranger to find out who I really was. My name is Julian Cross, and by the time I turned 29, I had built an empire most men only dream about. It started with one idea in a dorm room, back when I had nothing but a laptop and a stubborn refusal to fail. 10 years later, that idea had grown into a company worth more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. Skyscrapers with my name on the lease. A private jet that could take me anywhere on Earth in a matter of hours. A bank account with so many zeros that the number itself stopped meaning anything to me. I should have been the happiest man alive. Instead, I was hollow. Every evening, my penthouse filled with the sound of silence, so loud it felt like static in my ears. I would stand at the window, looking down at a city full of millions of people, and feel like the only person in the world who truly existed alone. The women came and went. Beautiful women, smart women, women who laughed at my jokes and wore the jewelry. I bought them like trophies. There was Vanessa, who once cried over a diamond bracelet, but never once asked if my flight home had been safe. There was Camille, who wanted to know about the penthouse downtown before she wanted to know about me. Every one of them saw the same thing when they looked at me, not Julian, but the money that walked around wearing his face. I remember one night, standing in my kitchen with a woman whose name I am almost ashamed to admit I had already forgotten. When I asked her a simple question, "What exactly do you love about me?" she smiled, the kind of smile that never quite reaches the eyes, and said, "I love the beautiful life you give me." Something in my chest went cold when she said that. Not because it hurt, I had heard some version of that sentence a dozen times before, but because I realized, with a kind of quiet horror, that I had stopped expecting anything different. I told her to leave that night. She did, without much protest, already texting someone else before she reached the elevator. I sat alone in that enormous apartment, surrounded by furniture that cost more than most people's homes, and I felt something break loose inside me. A question I had been avoiding for years finally forced its way to the surface. What if nobody, anywhere, actually loved me? Not my money, not my name, not the version of me that showed up in magazines and business headlines. Me, the boy who used to stay up all night dreaming. Before any of this existed, I thought about my parents, and even that offered little comfort. My mother loved me. I believed that much. But my father, Richard, I had never once looked at me without also calculating what I could do for his political career. To him, I wasn't a son so much as an asset, a name to be married off strategically, a piece to be moved across a board. I lay awake that night, turning one idea over and over in my mind until it stopped feeling impossible and started feeling necessary. What if I disappeared, not forever, not completely, but long enough to find out the truth? What if I went somewhere far from this city? Somewhere nobody had ever heard the name Julian Cross, and became someone else entirely? What if I stripped away every single thing that made people love the idea of me, and left only the man underneath? I would need a story, something that would make people see me not as wealthy, not as powerful, but as someone beneath their notice entirely, a person the world had already decided wasn't worth much. I would pretend to be poor, broken, unable to walk. I would become a beggar in a wheelchair, and I would go looking for the one thing my money had never been able to buy. By morning, the decision had settled into my bones like something unshakable. I picked up my phone and called the two people I trusted most in this world, even if I already knew what they were going to say. "Mom," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Please come home. I need to tell you something important." I had no idea, as I said those words, that I was about to walk into a village that would either save me or cost the people who love me everything they had. My mother arrived at the penthouse before I had even finished my coffee, her heels clicking against the marble floor with the particular urgency only a worried parent can carry. My father walked in 20 minutes later, still adjusting his tie, clearly pulled straight out of some meeting that had suddenly become far less important than whatever emergency his son was facing. "Julian, what happened?" my mother asked, her eyes already scanning me for injury, for blood, for some visible proof of disaster. "Nothing happened," I said. "Not yet. But I need to tell you both something, and I need you to hear me out before you say anything." My father crossed his arms. "What is so important that both of us had to leave work in the middle of the day?" I took a breath and said the thing I had rehearsed in my head all night. "I'm leaving the city. I'm going to disappear for a while." The silence that followed felt like it lasted an hour. "Disappear," my father repeated flatly, as though the word itself was an insult to everything he had built. "You are a billionaire, Julian. Not only that, I am a politician, and your mother is one of the most recognized businesswomen in this country. You cannot simply vanish. People will ask questions. That's exactly why I have to do it quietly." I said, "I'm not going somewhere glamorous. I'm going somewhere nobody will recognize my face. I'm going to pretend to be a disabled beggar." My mother's hand went to her mouth. My father's expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes went very still, the way it always did when he was calculating the worst possible outcome. "Have you lost your mind?" he said quietly. "What if someone dangerous finds out who you really are? You could be kidnapped." "Hamid, held for ransom. Do you understand what you're asking us to accept? I'm sorry that this frightens you." I told him, and I meant it, "but I have to do this." "Nothing," my mother said, her voice trembling, "is worth losing you." I looked at her, really looked at her, and tried to explain the thing I hadn't been able to put into words until that very moment. Every woman who has ever claimed to love me has loved the version of me that comes with private jets and diamond bracelets. I don't know if the real me is lovable at all. I need to find out. And if I tell anyone where I'm going, people will follow me. Guards, assistants, reporters, someone will always be watching. And the moment they're watching, the test means nothing. My father exhaled slowly. The sound of a man conceding a battle. He knew he couldn't win. "He has never done anything like this before," he said, almost to himself. "That doesn't make it safe," my mother replied, "far enough that nobody will know my face." I said, "That's the whole point." In the days that followed, I prepared quietly, almost obsessively. I gave away my usual wardrobe and found clothes that had been worn thin by other hands before mine, fabric soft with age, seams fraying at the edges, I practiced sitting in a wheelchair until the motion felt natural instead of foreign. Until my shoulders learned to slump the way a man's shoulders slump when the world has stopped expecting anything from him. I let my beard grow rough and uneven. I stopped cutting my hair. I studied the way exhaustion moves through a person's face. And I practiced wearing it like a mask until it no longer felt like acting at all. My mother watched me get dressed on the morning I left. Her arms folded tightly across her chest as if she were trying to hold herself together. "You are truly leaving dressed like this?" she asked. Her voice barely above a whisper. "People have to believe I have nothing." I said, "If I still look wealthy even a little, the entire test means nothing. Must you really go this far?" I didn't answer. I simply held her gaze until she understood that this was no longer a conversation about whether I would go, only about how she would let me leave. "Please," she finally said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like the perfume she'd worn my entire childhood. "Come home the moment you feel unsafe." "I will," I told her. "I promise." My father said nothing for a long moment. And when he finally spoke, his voice had lost its usual sharpness. "You still refuse to tell us where you're going, Fina, but I need to know that nobody was sent to follow you. Be careful. Julian, do not become careless simply because you believe no one recognizes you anymore." "I understand, Father," I said. And then I left the only life I had ever known, carrying nothing but a bag of borrowed clothes and a question I was terrified to answer. I had no idea, as the city disappeared behind me, that I was driving toward the one place that would either save my life or break it completely. The road that led me out of the city eventually became the kind of road that no longer had a name, just dust and silence and the occasional bird calling out from somewhere in the distance. By the time the car that dropped me off disappeared over the horizon, I was alone in a way I had never truly been alone before. No assistant, a phone call away. No driver waiting outside. No name that meant anything to anyone within 100 miles. I found a spot on the roadside near the edge of a small village and settled into the wheelchair I had practiced using for weeks. The wood of the old chair dug into my back. The sun pressed down against my skin with a heat I had never really felt before. Not the kind that greets you for the 30 seconds between a car door and an air-conditioned building, but the kind that settles into your bones and stays there. I sat there for hours. Nobody stopped. Nobody looked twice. For the first time in my entire life, I understood what it felt like to be invisible, and it terrified me more than I expected it to. I had never asked a stranger for anything before, not once, and yet there I was, holding out a trembling hand to people who had every reason to walk past me, feeling a shame I couldn't fully explain, considering I knew the truth about who I really was. Then a young woman crossed the dirt path carrying a basket of vegetables on her hip, her dress simple and sun-faded, her hands rough from work. I could only imagine. She paused when she saw me, and something in her expression made my chest tighten. Not pity exactly, but a kind of quiet concern that felt entirely unfamiliar. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I'm just trying to get by," I told her. And for the first time since I had left the city, the words felt strangely, uncomfortably true. She reached into the small pouch tied at her waist and pulled out a handful of coins, pressing them into my palm without a moment's hesitation. "Here. I know it's not much, but it's all I have right now. Thank you," I said. "You don't know how much this means to me." Her name, I would learn, was Amara. She told me she lived with her father in a small house nearby, admitting with a kind of quiet embarrassment that she wasn't sure he would agree to take in a stranger. However much she wished she could help, the sun was beginning to sink low over the fields, and she said she needed to hurry home, that it was getting late. But before she left, she looked back at me one more time. "It was nice meeting you," she said. "Thank you again," I told her. and I meant every word of it in a way that had nothing to do with the coins in my hand. That night, alone on the roadside with the sky turning a deep, bruised purple above me, I assumed I would simply sleep where I sat, the way I imagined real beggars did every single night of their lives. But Amara returned before the last light disappeared completely, her father's voice apparently having settled the matter without much of an argument. My father said, "You can't stay out here alone tonight." She said, "Come with us. We'll give you a place to sleep. It isn't safe out here." I don't know what to say. I told her, and it was the first fully honest sentence I had spoken since arriving. "You don't have to say anything," she said gently. "Just let us help you." Her father, a broad-shouldered man named Samuel, with a face carved by decades of sun and hard work, looked me over carefully when I arrived at their door, the way a man looks over anything he intends to take responsibility for. "Is this the man you told me about?" he asked his daughter. "Yes, Father." He nodded once, firmly. "You are welcome here. We do not have much, but you will not sleep outside tonight." "Thank you, Sir," I said, and something in my throat tightened around the words. The house itself was small in a way that made my penthouse feel almost obscene, in comparison a single room divided by cloth curtains. A dirt floor swept so clean, it nearly shone. Walls patched together with whatever materials had been available at the time. And yet, standing in that doorway, I felt something I hadn't felt in my own marble hallways in years. I felt safe. "The house is small," Samuel said, watching my expression. "But you are safe here." "It is not much," I told him honestly. "But it is clean. It is more than enough." In the days that followed, Samuel built me a chair beneath the shade of the largest tree on their small piece of land, insisting that everyone needs a quiet place to breathe. Amara taught me a game with small stones and rules she swore existed, though I was fairly certain she invented half of them on the spot, laughing every time I lost. In the evenings, the three of us shared meals that cost almost nothing and somehow tasted like more than anything I had eaten in my entire life. But every night, once the lantern was blown out and the house fell quiet, the same question returned, to sit beside me in the dark. How could I keep enjoying this peace, this warmth, this family that had opened their door to a stranger, while hiding the one truth that would change everything the moment they learned it? I didn't have an answer. I only knew that the longer I stayed silent, the more it would cost when the truth finally came out. Weeks passed in that small village, and somewhere in the quiet rhythm of shared meals and long afternoons, something shifted inside me that I hadn't expected and didn't fully understand until it was already too late to stop it. I was falling in love with Amara. Not the version of love I had known in the city, the kind wrapped in champagne and jewelry and calculated smiles, but something quieter and far more dangerous to my carefully built lie. I loved the way she counted the pieces in our little stone game 5 times before admitting defeat, insisting I had somehow cheated, even though we both knew I hadn't. I loved the sound of her laughter carrying across the yard in the evenings. I loved the way she noticed things nobody else ever had, the way she asked, gently, if something was on my mind, whenever sadness crossed my face, even when I gave her nothing but a half-truth in return. "I'm grateful to be here," I told her one evening, when she asked why I sometimes seemed distant. "I've been through a lot." It wasn't a lie. Exactly. It just wasn't the truth she deserved. Samuel, too, had grown protective of me in a way that reminded me painfully of the father I wished I'd had. One evening, sitting beneath the same tree where he'd built my chair, he finally asked the question I had been dreading since the day I arrived. "You have never told us how you ended up in that wheelchair," he said. "What happened to you?" I had rehearsed this lie so many times it came out smoother than the truth ever could have. A few months ago, my car skidded off the road. I was lucky to survive, but my legs were badly injured. The doctor said I could walk again, but I would need surgery. I could never afford it. Samuel shook his head slowly. That is a terrible thing for any young man to endure. I try not to think about what I've lost, I said, and the words tasted like ash in my mouth. Because the truth was, I hadn't lost anything at all. I had simply given it away. One lie at a time. To two people who had nothing and had still chosen to give me everything. I didn't know, in that moment, exactly what Samuel had already begun planning in the quiet hours when I wasn't watching. Meanwhile, life in the village carried on around us in ways that had nothing to do with me. Amara ran a small stall at the market. Selling vegetables her father grew before the sun climbed too high. And it was there that a man named Marcus had made it his personal mission to win her hand, showing up nearly every week with gifts she consistently refused. I have told you not to bring gifts to my store, she said to him once, when I happened to be nearby, and I have told you I will not stop trying. Marcus replied, unbothered, marry me. Amara, you could live comfortably in the city instead of struggling here every day. You have asked me before. Marcus, my answer is still no. You are a very beautiful girl. He pressed. Why would you choose this struggle when I can give you a mansion and a comfortable life? My life is humble. Amara told him evenly, but it gives me peace. He didn't take the rejection gracefully. You are a fool for choosing poverty, he said, his charm slipping to reveal something colder underneath. You are only a village girl who doesn't know what's good for her. Then stop wasting your time on me, she said, and walked away without looking back. I watched the exchange from a distance, something unfamiliar rising in my chest. Jealousy, I realized, an emotion I had rarely felt in the city, where women had always seemed replaceable, interchangeable, easy to walk away from. But the thought of Amara walking away from me, the way she had just walked away from Marcus, felt unbearable. Marcus, frustrated by his failures, eventually turned to Amara's closest friend, a woman named Diana, slipping her an envelope of money and asking her to convince Amara to reconsider. Diana, for reasons that had far more to do with her own feelings than Marcus's wealth, agreed far too easily. Honestly, Diana told him, you are a good match for her. Handsome, and ready to take her out of this village. I will speak to her. But when Diana visited, the conversation revealed far more than either of them intended. I am not interested in Marcus, Amara told her plainly. Then tell me why you keep saying no to him, Diana pressed. Because, Amara said quietly, I think I am beginning to fall in love with someone else. Diana's expression shifted the moment she realized who Amara meant. That poor man in the wheelchair, you would throw away a wealthy man's love for a beggar you picked up off the street. Do not speak about him that way, Amara said, her voice sharpening. He may be poor, but he is kind. I will not measure a person's heart by what he owns. I never heard that conversation myself. Not directly, but in the days that followed, I noticed something new in the way Diana looked at me whenever our paths crossed. Something calculating, something hungry, something that had nothing to do with friendship at all. None of us knew it yet, but the ground beneath all four of us was about to shift completely, because while I was falling in love with a woman who believed she was helping a broken, penniless stranger, Samuel had quietly begun selling pieces of his family's land, coin by coin, to pay for a surgery I never actually needed. I didn't know how deep Samuel's sacrifice had gone until the evening he came to find me beneath the tree, his face carrying an expression I had never seen on him before, something between pride and exhaustion. The look of a man who had just done something enormous and was trying very hard not to show the weight of it. Julian, he said, I have good news. What happened? Sir, the money for your surgery is ready. I sold one of my lands today. The words landed in my chest like something physical, You sold your land for me, you deserve a chance to walk again," he said simply, as though it were the only reasonable thing a man could do. I sat there in silence, holding a stack of money that represented a piece of land his father and his father's father had once called their own. And I understood, finally, with a clarity that made my stomach turn, exactly how far my lie had traveled beyond my control. That land carried generations of history, and I had let him trade it for a surgery I never needed, an injury I never had, a lie I had worn so comfortably that I'd almost started believing it myself. I couldn't take it anymore. "This is too much," I told him, my voice unsteady in a way it hadn't been since I arrived in that village. "I cannot keep lying to you. I am not really a beggar. And I am not poor." Samuel's face went still. "What do you mean?" There was no version of this confession that could soften what I was about to say. So I simply said it. "I am a billionaire. I am not poor. Women only ever wanted my money. So I came here disguised, to see if anyone could love me for myself. The accident," Samuel said slowly, each word landing like a stone. "The surgery, those were lies. Too. Yes," I admitted. "My legs were never injured." For a long moment, he said nothing at all. When he finally spoke, his voice had lost every bit of the warmth I had grown to depend on. "That land carried my father's name, and his father's name before him. I sold my family's last inheritance for your lie. I never expected you to go that far," I said, and even as the words left my mouth, I understood how hollow they sounded. "Amara worked herself tired for your sake," he continued, his voice rising now. Years of quiet dignity, cracking under the weight of what I'd taken from him. "We sold our food. We saved every coin we had. You watched us sacrifice everything, all while knowing you needed nothing at all. I am sorry," I said, because there was nothing else left to say. "Amara found us like that, her father standing outside, visibly shaken. Tears he refused to acknowledge, glistening in his eyes. She ran to him first, Elamil, before turning to me with a question that would change everything between us. "Father, what happened? What did he do?" I forced myself to look at her, to say the words I had been avoiding since the moment I first arrived in that village. "Amara, I have lied to both of you from the beginning." "What are you talking about?" "I am not poor," I said. "My legs were never injured. The accident, the surgery, all of it was a lie. I came here pretending to be helpless because I wanted to know if anyone could care for me without knowing about my money." She stared at me for a long moment, and I watched something break behind her eyes in real time. "So we were only a test to you," she said quietly. "Everything my father and I did was part of your little experiment. We fed you when we barely had enough to feed ourselves. We gave you a room. We cared for you every single day because we believed you were suffering. And my father sold our land, our last hope for a better future for someone who never needed our help at all. I never meant for any of this to happen," I said. "I only wanted to find someone who would love me without my money." "Then you should have told the truth," she said, her voice breaking. "Before we lost everything." "Amara, please no," she said, stepping back from me as though the distance itself might undo what she'd just learned. "I cannot listen to you right now. Everything I believed about you has become a lie." She turned away before I could say another word, and I stood there in the dying light, watching the only two people who had ever loved me without knowing my name walk back into their small house and quietly close the door behind them. Alone beneath that same tree Samuel had built for me with his own hands, I finally understood the cruelest irony of everything I had done. I had come to that village searching for proof that someone could love the real me, stripped of every advantage money had ever given me. And in the process of searching for that truth, I had destroyed the only real love I had ever found. By morning, the word of what happened had already begun to spread through the village, like fire through dry grass. Whispers moved from house to house, market stall to market stall, until every single person in that small community knew the truth. I had spent months trying to hide. The beggar in the wheelchair was a billionaire, and he could walk. News travels fast in a small village. But news like mine traveled faster than anything the place had ever seen. Within a single day, everyone from the market stalls to the farthest fields knew the truth, that the crippled beggar who had been living with Samuel and his daughter was, in fact, one of the wealthiest men in the entire country. And worse, that he could walk on legs that had never actually been broken. Marcus was among the first to hear it. And true to his nature, he wasted no time turning the news to his advantage. "Amara has rejected me," he said, showing up at Diana's door as though the timing of his visit meant nothing at all. "I'm ready to be with you now. We can start over. Forget everything that happened." Diana's laugh had no warmth in it. "You must be out of your mind to think I would ever marry someone like you. You said you wanted me." He reminded her, "That was before I learned the kind of person you really are." She said coldly, "You've been flaunting cars and clothes that were never yours. Pretending to be wealthy when you have nothing. You're a fraud, Marcus. A cheap fraud, and I would never waste my time on someone like you." Rejected on every side, Marcus made one final attempt, appearing at Samuel's home to plead his case directly to Amara, promising to take care of her and her father, offering a life free of struggle. But Amara, still raw from betrayal, wasn't interested in trading one kind of dishonesty for another. "I cannot go with you," she told him. "The wounds are still too fresh, and I am not ready to leave everything behind." Diana, watching her own plans collapse alongside Marcus's, decided to take matters into her own hands. She found me not long after, her approach gentle at first, almost sisterly. "I know you're hurting," she said. "I only came because I don't want Amara to keep deceiving you." "Deceiving me, how?" I asked, genuinely confused. "She was never truly interested in you," Diana said, her voice dropping to something more intimate. "She's been flirting with other men this whole time. She's only good at playing the innocent girl. I've known her for years, I know the truth. And the truth is, I like you. Julian, I admired you from the very beginning. Even when you were sitting on that street corner begging for coins. If you liked me," I said slowly, "why wait until now to say something?" "I was waiting for the right time," she said. "I didn't want to interfere while you were still sorting things out with her." I looked at her for a long moment, understanding exactly what kind of woman stood in front of me. "Get out," I told her. "I know exactly what you're doing. Diana, you're after my money. Nothing more. You're spoiled and selfish, and nothing but a gold digger dressed up as a friend." She left without another word, though her expression told me this wasn't over, not for her pride, and not for the resentment now curdling beneath it. Meanwhile, a far more dangerous storm was gathering back in the city. My mother had told my father everything, including the fact that I had returned home briefly, only to leave again for the village and the woman I loved. My father's reaction was immediate and cold. "Nonsense," he said, though of course by then he was calling me Julian, the son he had never quite understood, going off to some village pretending to be a beggar, all in the name of finding true love. It was foolish from the very beginning, but I don't love her, I said, referring to Chief Okafor's daughter, whose hand my father had already promised on my behalf. "I don't even know her." "This isn't about love," my father snapped. "This is about power, about our family's future. Chief Okafor's support secures my governorship. You have one job, Julian, and that is to marry his daughter. Forget the girl from the village. She is nothing compared to what you could have." I refused him outright, and that refusal set something dangerous into motion. My father, unwilling to accept defeat gracefully, arranged instead for Samuel and Amara to be brought to the city under the guise of generosity, a house, a business, a fresh start, all offered freely and warmly on the surface. But the offer came with a threat hidden beneath its politeness. "I gave you and your father this house," my father told Amara privately. Once Samuel was out of earshot, "I arranged a business so he would never have to work that land again. Now show your gratitude by staying away from my son. If you or your father refuse, both of you will simply disappear. No one will ask what happened to you." When Amara told me what my father had said, something inside me went cold in a way I hadn't felt since the night I first decided to disappear and become someone else entirely. "Father, how could you do this?" I demanded, finding him in his study later that evening. "You went behind my back and threatened Amara after promising to help her family. I warned her to stay away from you," he said, entirely unashamed. "I will not allow some village girl to destroy the future I have planned for this family. Then I will end your marriage arrangement myself," I told him, and I meant it. I went straight to Chief Okafor and told him the truth without hesitation, that I would never marry his daughter, that Amara was already carrying my child, and that no political ambition, however large, would change my mind. The chief's fury was immediate, and it reached my father within the hour. "Your son has disgraced my daughter," Chief Okafor told him coldly, "and insulted my entire family. I want nothing more to do with you." The governorship my father had spent years maneuvering toward slipped through his fingers within days, the opposition claiming victory in an election he had once considered guaranteed, consumed by rage and humiliation, and unwilling to accept that his own choices had cost him everything. My father made a decision that would push our family to the very edge of no return. He sent men to Samuel's house in the middle of the night, with instructions to leave him breathing, but to make sure he never forgot the cost of defying a man like Richard Cross. The phone call came in the middle of the night, and I have never moved faster in my entire life. "Julian, my father was attacked. He's in the hospital. The doctor said I brought him in just in time." I don't remember the drive to the hospital. I only remember standing outside the emergency room, staring at my own trembling hands, understanding with a horror that swallowed everything else that this violence, this brutality had been done in my name, because of my family, because of a greed that had nothing to do with the man who had once given me a chair beneath a tree, simply because everyone needs a quiet place to breathe. "If you hadn't brought him in when you did," the doctor told Amara, "your father would not have survived. It's a miracle he's still alive." I found my father that same night, sitting in his study as though nothing at all had happened, as though he hadn't just ordered violence against the one man who had shown me more real kindness than my father ever had. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "You sent people to hurt Samuel," I said, "because of you. An innocent man is lying in a hospital bed fighting for his life. All because of your greed, your need for control. If he doesn't survive this, I swear to you, you will pay for it with everything you have left." For the first time in my entire life, I watched my father's composure completely collapse. "Julian, I'm sorry," he said, and his voice cracked in a way I had genuinely never heard before. "I pushed you too far. My greed brought us to this. I didn't want anyone to get hurt. I only wanted you to have the life I thought was best for you. You've never cared about what's best for me." I told him, "You've only ever cared about what's best for yourself. I'm done. Father, if Samuel dies, you will see exactly how far I'm willing to go. I will fix this," he said. "I promise. I won't let anything happen to him. Fixing this," I said, "won't undo the trust you've already broken, but I'll hold you to your word. If anything happens to him, I will never forgive you, and I will never come back." To my genuine surprise, My father kept that promise. He used every resource he had left: money, influence, the last threads of a reputation not yet fully destroyed, to ensure Samuel received the best care available, and to make certain nothing like that night ever happened again. Samuel recovered slowly, and something unexpected happened in the weeks that followed. My father, stripped of his political ambitions and forced to sit with the consequences of his own choices, for the first time in his life, began to visit Samuel's bedside not as a threat, but as a man seeking forgiveness he knew he didn't entirely deserve. "I have never met a man as kind as you," my father told him quietly one afternoon. "I will do whatever it takes to make this right." Meanwhile, karma was arriving for the others in ways none of us had orchestrated. Diana, humiliated and increasingly desperate after losing both Marcus and me, devised one final scheme. She convinced Marcus, still smarting from his own rejection, to help her stage a con of his own. Pretending to be a wealthy businessman searching for a wife in a nearby village. All as an act of petty revenge against her for the money she'd taken from him without ever delivering on her promises. "Marry me," the disguised stranger told her, "and after the wedding, I'll take you to the city, to the big house waiting for you." She agreed instantly, blinded by the very greed she had once mocked in others. The truth arrived exactly the way truths tend to arrive for people who build their lives on lies suddenly, and far too late. "Where is the big house you promised me?" Diana demanded, standing in front of a rundown shack. "I am not a wealthy businessman," the man confessed. "I don't have money. I'm a roadside mechanic." By the time Diana learned the truth, she was already pregnant, already trapped, and soon after, already abandoned. She spent months living on the streets of a city she had once dreamed would make her rich, discovering instead exactly what it felt like to be looked down on by everyone around her. It was Amara, of all people, who found her there, broken and barely recognizable. "I lost everything," Diana admitted, shame written across every line of her face. "After I left the village, my life fell apart completely. Despite everything, the lies, the betrayal, the attempts to tear her relationship apart." Amara reached into her bag and handed Diana enough money to start over. "Use this to build something for yourself," Amara told her. "After everything I did to you," Diana said, stunned, "you're still helping me. It's never right to look down on people." Amara said simply, "Life can change in ways you never expect." As for Marcus, his own greed finally caught up with him in the most public way possible. An internal investigation at the company where he worked uncovered months of stolen funds and unauthorized use of company vehicles. All of it spent trying to impress women he could never actually afford to impress. "You stole from this company," his employer told him, "and repeatedly took company property without permission. You are fired. The police will handle the rest." Marcus, once so certain that wealth and charm would win him everything he wanted, ended up with nothing at all. No job, no reputation, and a criminal record that would follow him for the rest of his life. Unravels. Every person who had built their happiness on deception, cruelty, or greed watched that foundation crumble beneath them. And one by one, the people who had chosen honesty, sacrifice, and love, even when it cost them everything, began, slowly, to find their way back to peace. I still remember sitting in that old wheelchair on a dusty village road, feeling invisible, hungry, and completely alone. What I didn't know then was that somewhere out there, real people sit in real wheelchairs, carrying real pain, waiting for a surgery they will never be able to afford. I lied about my suffering once. I have spent every day since trying to ease the suffering of people who never had to lie about theirs. "Amada," I said one evening, watching our daughter sleep in the next room. We have more wealth than our grandchildren will ever need. There are people on the streets tonight who are truly hungry, truly hopeless. I want us to change that. We built a foundation that day, one that provides surgery, shelter, training, and a genuine second chance to anyone the world has learned to look past. It became our promise, a promise that no one in this city would ever have to sit on a street corner feeling invisible again. I thought, for most of my life, that money was the only thing people ever truly wanted. I disguised myself as a broken man to test that theory, and what I found instead was a family who had nothing, yet somehow gave me everything. They taught me that real wealth was never something you could carry in a bank account. It lives in the compassion you carry in your heart, and in the people you choose to lift up along the way. Money could never buy the love Samuel and Amara gave me. It could only ever buy comfort. Love, I learned, has to be earned in truth. If this story moved you even a little, we would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us what you would have done in Samuel's place, or in Amara's. If you enjoyed this story, give it a thumbs up. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that true love has nothing to do with money. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this one every single week.